Granite shouldn't do that, but this granite does. Welcome to the Sage Wall, a 275-foot enigma hiding in the American wilderness. Officially, it's a geological formation, but officially doesn't explain the magnet. Officially doesn't explain what's buried beneath it. And officially doesn't explain why, the deeper you look, the less this wall resembles anything nature has ever built. There are places on Earth that keep secrets, not because they're hidden, but because we're not ready to see them. For generations, this remote stretch of private land in Montana was just land. Trees, brush, deadfall thick enough to swallow a man. No one suspected anything lay beneath. Christopher Borton and Linda Welsh had managed this property for years. They knew its ridges, its silence, its moods. What they didn't know was that they were standing on top of something that would challenge everything they understood about history. It began with a single edge. During a routine land clearing operation, the machines pushed back the brush, and there it was, a line, straight as a ruler, rising from the earth like the spine of something colossal. As more debris fell away, the line extended, 10 feet, 30, 100. And suddenly, what had been dismissed as rugged terrain revealed itself as something else entirely. A wall. Massive, unbroken, composed of granite blocks fitted together with a precision that looked less like geology and more like intention. 275 feet long, 25 feet of exposed face rising from the hillside in a near-perfect vertical plane. These are the numbers. Cold, undeniable. But numbers only tell you what's above the surface. Ground-penetrating radar tells a different story. Beneath the visible wall lies another 15 feet of continuous structure, a foundation hidden from human eyes, waiting in the darkness below. And then there are the stones themselves. The largest block is estimated at nearly 100 tons. To move a stone like this today would require specialized cranes, engineered transport systems, and a team of experts. In prehistoric Montana, no such technology is known to have existed. For scale, consider this. The heaviest stones at Sacsayhuaman weigh around 120 tons. The Trilithon at Baalbek, one of the most famous megalithic mysteries on Earth, features blocks of nearly 800 tons. The Sage Wall sits comfortably in this company, not in fame, but in sheer, unanswered weight. But those sites exist within a context: quarries, tools, written records, cultural memory. In Montana, there is only the wall, and the silence around it. Scale is just the beginning. The wall's surface tells a stranger story. Look at the joints. The blocks don't simply stack, they interlock. Their seams twist and angle in complex polygonal patterns, the kind typically associated with deliberate masonry, not random fracture. The fit is so precise that in places a knife blade would struggle to pass between them. And then there are the knobs. Rounded protrusions rising from otherwise flat surfaces. In ancient architecture across South America and the Mediterranean, features like these served functional purposes: lifting points, anchoring mechanisms, alignment guides. Here, they appear scattered across the wall, defying easy geological explanation. Cupules. Small, shallow, circular depressions. They dot the surface like fingerprints left behind by hands we cannot name. To archaeologists, cupules are among the oldest known forms of human rock art, found on every inhabited continent. Their presence here is curious. And look closely at the grooves, long, linear channels that run across the face, maintaining their direction even as they pass from one block to the next, as if the stones were worked after they were placed, as if someone was here. The human eye can be fooled. It sees patterns where there are none, imposes order on chaos. That's why the investigation didn't stop at observation. It moved to instruments, tools that don't imagine, don't hope, don't assume. The magnet was the first surprise. Granite is not typically magnetic, but in specific areas of the Sage Wall, the pull is undeniable. This suggests anomalous concentrations of magnetite or other iron-bearing minerals. Natural? Perhaps. But the distribution is uneven, localized in ways that warrant deeper analysis. The ground-penetrating radar revealed something else entirely. Extending from the base of the wall, buried just below the surface, is a flat, continuous feature, almost like a platform, almost like a courtyard. Its edge aligns precisely with the wall's orientation, too precisely perhaps for chance. And then, the alignment. Preliminary readings indicate the sage wall runs on a northwest to southeast axis, a bearing that closely tracks the sunrise and sunset positions during the winter solstice. If intentional, this would place the wall in the company of ancient structures across the globe: Stonehenge, Newgrange, the Temple of Karnak, monuments built by civilizations who used stone to mark the turning of the sky. A buried platform, magnetic anomalies, solstitial alignment, polygonal masonry, 100-ton stones. Each one, alone, might be a geological curiosity. Together, they begin to form a pattern. And patterns, by definition, are not accidents. But science is not in the business of belief. Every extraordinary claim demands an ordinary alternative. And in the case of the Sage Wall, geology has one. During the last ice age, this land sat at the edge of chaos. Squeezed between continent-spanning ice sheets, it endured forces almost beyond comprehension. Glacial meltwater carved valleys in days. The Missoula floods, among the most violent events in Earth's history, scoured this region repeatedly, moving boulders the size of houses like pebbles in a stream. Geologists point to the bedrock, granite from the boulder batholith. Over millions of years, pressure and temperature changes created natural fractures, joints within the stone. When these joints intersect at sharp angles, a process called orthogonal jointing, they can cause rock to fracture in remarkably straight, block-like patterns. The wall's flat face, skeptics argue, is simply a single massive joint plane, exposed by erosion and gravity. The seams? Natural fracture lines. The straight edge? A geological coincidence, magnified by human pattern recognition. The knobs? Differential weathering, harder mineral nodules resisting erosion while softer stone wears away. The cupules? Solution pans, formed over millennia by pooling rainwater and freeze-thaw cycles. The grooves? Glacial striations or natural stress fractures. From this perspective, the Sage Wall is not a monument. It is a masterpiece of coincidence, a place where natural processes over millions of years happen to converge in a way that mimics architecture. It's a reasonable hypothesis. It follows the principle of parsimony. The simplest explanation is often correct. But does it satisfy? Can jointing explain 275 continuous feet of unwavering precision? Can weathering explain the polygonal interlocks, the way stones seem to grip each other rather than merely rest? Can erosion explain the buried platform detected by radar, a flat, artificial-looking feature aligned perfectly with the wall above? Any one of these features, in isolation, could be dismissed. A quirk, a coincidence, a trick of light and longing. But all of them, concentrated in a single location, aligned to a single axis, buried beneath centuries of forest growth? This is the threshold where skepticism must confront its own limits. Not because belief is demanded, but because certainty, in either direction, is not yet earned. If the Sage Wall is geology, it is the most extraordinary geological accident ever documented, a place where chaos, against all probability, produced the appearance of design. If it is not geology, then something else was here, something older, something we have no name for, something that rewrites the story we've told ourselves about who came before. Today, the Sage Wall remains on private land. Christopher Borton and Linda Welsh have become its custodians, not by choice, but by circumstance. They didn't seek this mystery. It found them. Their stewardship protects the site from vandalism and exploitation, but it also limits large-scale excavation. The balance is impossibly delicate. How do you investigate a potential World Heritage Site without destroying the very evidence you're seeking? Too little access, and its secrets remain buried forever. Too much, and they could be lost in the digging. This is why the Sage Wall matters. Not because it proves ancient civilizations walked this land, not because it disproves geology, but because it sits exactly at the edge of what we know and forces us to look into the darkness beyond. We are not in danger from the wall. We are in danger from ourselves, from our certainty, from our reflex to explain away what we cannot fit into the story we've already written. If we dismiss it without exhaustive proof, we risk erasing a chapter of human history we didn't know existed. If we embrace it without evidence, we risk building myth on hope. The wall does not answer. It only asks. It asks, what are you willing to question? What are you afraid to find? And when you stand at the edge of the unknown, do you turn back or do you step forward? Whether it's a monument of the forgotten or a symphony of stone and time, the Sage Wall deserves one thing above all: the truth.